Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies of workplace dynamics. Oh, there we go. My painful video, my painful intro. Darren,
I love it.
Nothing like getting a podcast professional on the show and then miss my one main video and having to show that probably my least favorite as we go through.
I like it. I like the guitar work behind it.
That's it. Exactly. That's my good friend, Alonzo, and he laid down the guitar work. He's a fabulous artist living in Bangkok, music teacher, but also science teacher at school. Just amazing, great backstory with I'm glad you picked up the music. Darren, great. Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. Appreciate your time.
Ken. Much appreciated. Thanks for having me.
It's kind of cool. We're fellow podcasters, and I'm kind of feel like I'm the permanent hack at this, because mostly I've done a bunch of podcasts. I never really earned $1 off of them, and haven't really figured out how to monetize. I understand the value of what we talked about earlier, the content. Yeah, and I've been asked quite often, just for my own work and my own LinkedIn channel, and I think it's engaging, is to get on there and make short videos. But for some reason, standing in front of the iPhone and pontificating something beautiful and eloquent, and then feeling confident enough have the drive, or I don't have the ideas of what to speak about, where it's a set kind of a message, and I'm willing to do it consistently to have any impact and to make a statement. But this seems so natural to me. Conversations.
Yep, absolutely. And I agree.
Powerful
I think
stuff.
I agree. I think that with making content, particularly video content, everything now is so noisy and so saturated on social media that if you scroll through the stream, everybody's just talking at you. Like if you imagine to turn the sound off and you just watch the faces, everybody's just talking.
Yes.
It's almost like a comical pastime just for fun.
Yes. If you turn the sound off.
Yeah. Turn the sound off and just scroll. And everybody's like really animated and excited and trying to sell you and talking at you. And it's almost like overwhelming. So podcasting is so great because it's more of a light, passive conversation that invites people in as opposed to pushing them away. And that's why I love that. I love podcasting conversations.
There is that invite. That is that's a great articulation. Speaking at you, kind of almost shouting, trying to come through the energy, trying to get that energy through the video. Does come across a little aggressive and coming at you. And I agree. Conversations invite you in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like right now, even if we didn't have the sound on, people they'd see your banner, they'd see us talking together, they'd say, oh, wonder what they're talking about, rather than us just talking at somebody, trying to sell them something and them running away. So it's a very different psychological dynamic. And that's why I love podcasting.
When did the light come on? When did they get the light bulb moment of, okay, podcasting, this is something I need to pay attention to? And there might be an opportunity here. What was that like? That
quite
moment?
A few years ago. Yeah. When I first started all this journey, probably about 5-6 years ago, I've got 2 podcasts that I run because I work in a few different spaces. I work as an IT recruiter. So I've got a podcast particularly for my recruitment business. A very particular niche. I've got a whole separate LinkedIn profile just for that. And then I've got my podcast that I do that's more broad and more of a variety show and just for fun. And I do some teaching and coaching and stuff around that. But I started utilizing podcasting about 5-6 years ago when I realized that there had to be a new way to start marketing your business and your brand. The old ways weren't working anymore. Everybody was cold calling, and cold calling is not dead. You can still cold call. You can still do traditional business development, but it was getting harder and harder. People weren't paying attention to ads. You didn't want to spend money in the local paper or putting ads on Google or whatever it is. So I thought, you know what? I stumbled into podcasting, and I stumbled into the fact that content is so important to creating awareness and creating trust and credibility. And I thought, this is amazing. And the more I did it, the more I realized how powerful it was I just fell in love with it.
It's interesting when you look at social media work, right? And when I was kind of starting this off, I was looking at social media stuff, and the biggest challenge is content. Like, how, if you're a social media manager, you've got to, like, on Sunday night, you're just terrified, right? You've got to go in on Monday and scrape some content from somewhere in the organization to post on these different platforms. And, what's your strategy, and how long can you, how much runway do you have on topics and conversations and content and seasonal content? I mean, it's just a nightmare. But if you could get your head of product development or your CEO, and you get just even a company podcast and interview people during the year, you're done. You don't have to worry about it.
No, it takes care of itself. If, like I always say, if you can run a really tight podcast strategy and do it regularly, whether it's a weekly, bi-weekly, fortnightly, monthly, and just keep that strategy running consistently, you will never run out of content.
Yeah, you will never run. My problem now is I have infinite content right now. I did, I also did a JAR podcast. I did a show where I traveled around the country. And so I got about almost 400 interviews done there.
Wow.
350 interviews in 96 cities.
Oh my God. What was that? What was that on? Was it like a travelogue on the place?
Yeah, it's kind of, it was more human questions. So questions about life and about your belief systems around love, acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, karma, service, your past, how you think about these different, life topics. And I created a bunch of questions. And so this was my cleverness back in the day. I was starting out and I'm like, I'm not an interviewer, and I don't feel comfortable interviewing people because people will say stuff and then they'll stop, and then I'll have nothing clever to ask, right? I'll be like, I'll be the worst interviewer ever. So I decided to create questions to let the guest interview themselves.
Nice. That's cool. Very cool.
So that was my little handicap.
That's cool.
But the content in there is amazing, and the opportunity to go in there and dive in there is endless.
And indeed, and what I love as well is that it's content in all forms. If you do a podcast or a vlog or a vodcast in video and audio form, you will have video content, you'll have audio content, you'll have written content. You can take graphic content, screenshots, photos. Like, you have all forms of content covered. And then you just play with those and repurpose them and cut them up, and you can go forever.
I have a plan with the JAR content. We're going to take it, and actually we're going to start this with Mental Health Today, the Mental Health Today podcast that I do. We're taking the transcripts and we're going to publish them on Amazon.
Wow. Okay.
So with a bit of information, and we're also taking the transcripts and putting it into a searchable AI database.
Wow.
So people can use the widget. We have a widget on the website now. I have limited episodes into the folder, into the database, but we're starting to create that content and create a large file. It'd be 150 interviews, and you can search anything from the show about therapies or conversations or overcoming something. So I'm going to publish it on Amazon. I got an AI searchable database. You got the stuff on LinkedIn. You got the stuff on YouTube. So, it's crazy how you can slice this stuff up.
Definitely. And that's the key. You don't want to have to get up every morning and have anxiety over your content. You want to just have lots of stuff to play with, and then it becomes more about how do you exercise the creative muscle in actually utilizing what you already have. You don't have to think about what am I going to even start to do. So once you have all that stuff in raw form, then it's just really fun and creative, because you can say, all right, today I'm going to do that. Tomorrow I'm going to do a video. And then next day I'm going to do a mashup. Next day I'm going to put out a greatest hits. Next day I'm going to put out a screenshot. Then I'm going to do a post with all the last 10 episodes and tag every one of my guests, so that it's just infinite.
almost a lot. It's a lot of, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, this is the
It
other
is.
part. This is also fun.
It is
It
fun.
doesn't feel like work to me, which explains why I've started it. I'm like, I feel like a serial podcaster,
Yep.
and I already have a couple more ideas for other shows that I'd like to do. So and
Perfect.
it's just running out of time or but not running out of ideas. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. Yeah.
um,
And as you get started, you start getting a team around you as you do, and
yeah,
they can help you with some of the other stuff so you can
yeah,
continue to do what you want to do.
yeah. Which is just do this part, do the listening part.
Exactly. Yeah.
What so How did it help you in photography? So you're a photographer. I imagine that's I mean, that's tough space, right? This is
Yeah,
crowded space.
it is.
Like, I don't know how you stand out. And people search you, but I think if you're shopping for a photographer, it's also about, I mean, for certain events, it's about personality. You want the person to fit in.
Big time.
And then or it's a company and you're going to have to meet the culture. So you're still fitting
Yep.
in some way. And so I guess
Definitely.
podcasting helps people understand who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. Like when you're doing different events, some events are a little bit more corporate and a bit more, you have to be more of a fly on the wall. Whereas other events, you want to be part of the entertainment. It's like you are bringing the entertainment to give it more energy. So you have to know when to do what. And I think allowing yourself to be seen and build trust and credibility through conversations, through video, people get to know you and they say, yeah, I think that person's going to be great. He's going to fit in really well. Whereas if
That,
you're just a random person on a website, we don't know anything.
Yeah, and if you've got podcasts up, you've got endless podcasts, so they can watch you all day
Yeah,
talk about and talk. And look, there's value. If they see the value in what you're producing, they know that, okay, the photography is also easy for this person.
yeah, or not easy, but um, they know what they're doing and they're aware of how they have to fit in, and
Hmm.
they're self-aware enough to make sure that they do the right job. You've always got to be on your toes, and you've always got to be troubleshooting a situation in photography. Like there's always that's also what's fun about photography, that every situation is slightly different. Whether it's you have to deal with lighting, you have to deal with
Yeah.
people, you have to deal with the environment, you have to deal with staging. There's all sorts of different things. And every time you walk into an event, you've got to really think quickly and try to troubleshoot as you go. It's kind of fun. So that's challenging. That's why I like photography as well.
I was super fortunate. I lived and traveled all over Asia and Southeast Asia, and
Yeah.
it's just a photographer's paradise for me, at least
Right.
for me.
I agree.
I I literally went everywhere with my camera for about 10 years.
Wow. Oh my
Just
God.
about yeah, everywhere.
Wow.
And I got some great shots, and then you get good. You get good. And but
Sure.
I was a street photographer.
Yeah. I
So
love that too. I love street
there's
photography.
just nothing certain. You're going from light to dark, and
Yep.
people don't. They pose perhaps at times, but the idea is to not be seen in a way as well, right? Most of the
Definitely.
time, to just try to observe and capture life as it exists,
I agree.
and to hopefully get it in emotion, capture an image that's got some emotion in it.
Yep.
Um,
I love it. Oh
just
wow. I mean, you're,
photography.
you're talking my language. I'm a very passionate street photographer, and I also love photographing subcultures. So I'll go in Australia, in Sydney. We have obviously Chinatown. So I go to Chinatown a lot and I
Yeah.
photograph
Okay.
them,
Great.
together some stuff. I'll also go to another area called Cabramatta, which is like Little Vietnam, and I'll photograph
I
there.
love.
And I can just go there for days on end, and people get to know me. And some people run
Yes.
away, and some people smile. But I love it. It's so much. It's so interesting trying to document a subculture.
Oh, that's a great idea in a city, because I struggled to find you know a a frame. I had got
Yeah,
very good in the areas that I went. I went to markets, so I'd travel. I'd go to a wet market. I'd go to some random city in Vietnam or
yeah,
Thailand, and we'd be in some small town, and we'd get there and have dinner, and I'd be like, okay, let's get at 6 a.m. I'll be here 30. I'm going to eat, and at 6 a.m. I need to drive her
yep,
the five, whatever the morning was, and get there and just walk around and take it. some images of
Cool.
whatever humans are doing at that time in the market. Just so
Indeed.
much fun.
Oh, fascinating. In Asia, there's action on the street. People live, in inverted commas, live on the street. There's energy on the street all hours
Yeah.
of the day. Whereas in some of the
Yes.
Western countries, it's a little bit more sterile, and there's, people are watching TV and they're inside, and there's no one on the street. There's
Yeah.
no one outside. There's nothing. So I love Asia because it's thriving and it's full of energy, and you can just be with your camera 24/7. There's always something going on.
Yeah. There's always something going on. I will send you my Instagram.
I'd love to see your photo.
Yeah,
I would love it.
Yeah, you gotta kind of get past some of the more recent stuff and get into the Asia life stuff.
Yeah, that'd be very
What
cool.
happens? Where does podcasting go from here? I mean, I feel like it's an interesting dynamic, right? We had all the post-COVID, we had all the COVID people that went in and started podcasts and shake that out. It seems like the numbers are back, like people are starting podcasts and get like another round of it, like the second go. And the technology is getting killer.
It is.
That we're talking about the stuff we're using. Where do you think it goes from here?
Yeah, I think a few things possibly. I mean, I'm no fortune teller, but my gut feeling tells me more and more people are going to start to do a little bit more live podcasting events.
And
build
like this,
and build an audience to come, and it's almost like creating your own Oprah Winfrey show or Jerry Springer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you're up there on stage and you've got a whole community with you.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think I have an idea for the Jar podcast.
There you go.
So this was an in-person interview at, very intimate and very kind of hard to how to describe it, where people, as a custodian of their story in a way. And they were telling the story and documenting it. And these are people who would never, ever be on a podcast. No one's going to find them. No one's ever going to tell they're not getting on Oprah. No chance. These are just regular people I'm finding. And so they're a bit of that responsibility, right? The weight of that. And it's kind of cool. But how to bring that to the internet, how to bring that to live. And one idea I thought was I would be there, and, you have a green room here so you can have some people in the background and just go on different platforms and allow people to come on, and I would pull a question for them.
Yep. Great.
And let people, and then the broadcast is people can in the chat, like, how would you answer the question? Here's a question. And the questions are quite profound. So it does, does set people back a bit to sit there and answer. So it'd be really fun to get that idea. And I think that's what I thought would be a next generation, bigger events, more interaction, live stuff.
Q&A,
Q&A
people interacting with the guest and the host, like building your community around you, not just people listening to you and another guest. Definitely.
Hang on, I'm just going to move locations because
sure.
It seems that we're doing the lawn today.
Okay. Fantastic.
Exactly. Look, okay. I'm not sure I had that one on my.
It's all part of the fun. That's the other beauty about podcasting is it's raw and fun, and we love listening to this kind of stuff. We love watching this. This is great.
Yeah, I didn't have the electric mower on my bingo card.
Yeah, it wasn't on the on the run sheet.
Yeah, it wasn't on my bingo card, and it was definitely not on the rehearsal sheet. So this is an interesting, is seeing where do we go from here with the podcast is going to be a really interesting piece for me.
Definitely. So I think definitely more live events, whether they be live through the internet or live in a hall or in a community center or some kind of stadium. That's already happening a lot.
That was the other idea that I had for the jar, was to do it more sitting down with people, but have an audience.
Yeah.
And then you're saying is what you do now is instead of just doing that as an intimate 30 people, you broadcast it live.
Yep.
On a podcast.
Yeah. Yep. You can do that too. Yeah. So you could cover both bases. You could do it physically live and then broadcast it to your channels live as well.
Yeah.
So, and then people start charging for things like that. You might charge, you have an audience membership, and they pay membership to come and see you and interact. And then you start monetizing in that respect, and then you can create merchandise, and then you can, all sorts of things can come onto the top of that. And that's how you can start monetizing. And that's my other view is, I think people are going to start trying to find ways to monetize their podcast more and more, because everybody's doing all this content creation, and it's great, and we're all working together, but it takes a lot of work. So you have to monetize it a little, because it's has a lot of work that goes into this.
It really is a lot of work. I mean, it's no joke.
No way.
And I think, like you said, if you do get going and you get efficient at it, there's a lot of things you gain efficiency on. You get quite clever. But I'm still subscribing and managing about 4 platforms to produce the shows. These are, they're not free. None of them are free. They're all professional tools.
That's right.
And you've got to find, I'm investing a lot of time in my interns.
Definitely.
Great young kids, but each one needs almost an hour a week from me.
Yep. So there's a lot of time and energy there, and people have to understand. Like, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't pay for podcasts because I charge guests to come on my show as well." And some people say, "Oh, I don't pay for podcasts." I say, "No problem." But I think in the future, more and more people are going to realize that coming onto a good podcast with a good audience and a good host is really like a PR agent. And you pay your PR agent, you pay your photographer, you pay for your videographer, you pay your broker. Why don't you pay your podcast PR agent as well?
That's it. That's like an infallible logic to me. There's a lot like
you're doing all the work to build an audience. You're giving people all this content, and sometimes you might provide some snippet videos and co-creation
100%.
stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
And people have to realize that that's worth something.
And I think it takes time. It's a great point, Darren. And I think for me, it's excuse me, it's taken me time to feel confident looking at the brand, looking at everything else. The website for the Humanist is quite weak. I put it together in 10 minutes. I'm not even sure I put a paid version on it yet on GoDaddy. But
that's cool.
But if I look at the Mental Health Today website and what we've done with that, and that will happen on this one as well. It's a powerful website, looks great, and we highlight the guests in such a way that it's monetizable.
Definitely. All the guests want to get on to get exposure and to promote whatever it is they do, but they have to realize that, that comes at a cost as well. Why should they do all that for free? And the poor podcast is doing all the work behind the scenes and, funding the whole thing.
But it's a great point. You pay your photographer, you pay the artist, you pay different people, the marketing, you pay the PR people. And it's PR stuff. It's 100% PR. Yeah. We are great PR. I have a couple of good PR companies that use me now. They send me their guests.
Right. I've got a few as well. Yeah.
And I imagine that they're getting paid to place the guest.
Yep, they are. Definitely. There's podcast booking agents. They call them podcast booking agents.
Can I ask the booking agent for a fee?
I've tried, actually, but a lot of the time they don't want to double dip.
I think
the person that wants to come on says, "I'm already paying the podcast booking agent. I'm not going to pay another fee." Funny you should say that. I'll do a little plug for a great platform that I discovered through someone else on the internet. It's a great platform called Podmatch, POD.
Oh, yeah. Great one. I'm on it.
And it's awesome. I'm on it. And I've set myself up with all these great podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
I did some interviewing. I was just a podcaster. I'd never been a guest until last year, about this time.
Yeah.
And I went on about a 6-month stint, a couple podcasts a week. And it also helps your numbers. I mean, I attracted a lot of attention to the shows. Also very good in articulating who you are and your message, your story. You got to practice at it. And you can find good shows. Yeah. And you can do them for free. There's a ton of people like me that don't charge.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's reasonably low cost to become a member, and then AI a few times a day. AI starts matching you up with all the
Yeah.
podcasters that might
Yeah.
be suitable for you. And I've already booked in quite a few interviews, and I love it. And the system works so well. So big shout out to Alex and the team and at
Alex
Podmatch. I think they're great.
Sir, his last name is Alex
Sanfilippo, I think. Alex Sanfilippo.
Sanfilippo. Yeah, Sanfilippo. Yeah, big shout out. It's
Great platform. Awesome.
and he's doing really good. I mean, that's a good it's a good service. That
Great service.
It's the Tinder of guest matching.
I love it. The Tinder of podcasting. I love it.
Podcast Tindering. Swipe left or swipe right. It depends. It depends whether you're
that's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. And you get to be you get to be the girl sometimes too. So it's pretty good.
That's right. Yeah.
for us guys.
Indeed,
it's always
indeed,
it's always good to be the girl sometimes on those.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting time. It's such a young medium. And we look at radio, you look at TV and the changes it went through and this stuff. And now you look at just TV. Who watches TV? Who watches news shows?
No, I don't even have a news channel anymore. I just get everything from the internet.
So you start to think that there's going to be some, and look at the biggest listened to show right now, the Joe Rogan show is just gigantic. The amount of people that touching on that platform.
Yep. And when people want to learn something about a particular topic, where do they go? They jump on podcasts. There's a podcast on every single topic, and I listen to them all day long, and I'm learning so much. Years ago, you couldn't do that.
Even the way it's organized, like you said, YouTube is hard. It's good. They'll feed you stuff, but the algorithms are there. It's tough to get around the SEO and everything. You're going to be fed. You're not fed really the true result of what you want to find. And I think when you do go searching for podcasts, okay, you have to look a little bit and dig, but you can find, like you said, the most vertical topics you can imagine. And there's some. And actually, the more vertical, the easier it is to monetize.
Yeah. How to care for frogs. I'm sure there's a podcast about this somewhere.
And they probably charge because there's a million frog lovers in the world that are willing to pay $10 a month to be up on the latest and greatest disease and topical solution.
Look after your frog. So it's crazy, there's everything, and that's the other thing about it is that from the other side, because it's so noisy and so saturated, everybody has to learn to market it as well and promote it. Like your podcast is great, just like a website, but if you don't promote it and market it, nobody knows it's there.
This is also a big challenge. I think that's something I could use, probably talk to you a little bit about that, how to make sure I'm getting it out there and how to market it and how people won't find you. I mean, that's just the reality.
There's just too many. There's more podcasts. I think I heard some crazy statistic. There's more podcasts than listeners every day or something like that. Something ridiculous. And the amount of podcasts that are coming up every minute, there's God knows how many podcasts popping up. So it's really that saturated. But there's also an opportunity because a lot of those podcasts don't go past episode 10 or 12. People just start up.
Yeah. I think the number of podcasts with 100 episodes is less than 1%, probably.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. So once you get past 100, you're already in the game and you're doing well.
And at some point, I think there is some value. I have noticed on my mental health today because of the quantity of shows that it's quite searchable.
Yeah.
I don't even do any SEO on it. We haven't really performed any real good effort on that side, but just the sheer volume of it is overwhelmed the search engine.
Absolutely. The search engines and using social media, using all your social channels.
That's right. Also,
that's another great way to promote your podcast. You can even throw a bit of advertising budget against that on social media channels, and that's how you really boost it.
Yeah.
And then you're also tagging when you do it with a guest. That's why I love also interviewing guests. You're doubling up on your audience potential as well. So and you keep revisiting those episodes and re-promoting them in different ways. So keep bringing people back to the same channels because you want it to be evergreen. You don't want to just do a show once and then forget about it.
Yeah, no. And I just, I've got my team now, the the interns, if we don't have a live, like we don't have work now, like we don't have a show this, maybe might be you're bored and you got some extra time this week, go back and do an anniversary show.
Yep, exactly.
Go back. And so we've got, because this is a prime time. Last year I was really pumping these out like 3 a week. So you've got, and don't worry, you've got endless content. Just go back there and now StreamYard has that AI feature where it creates a short for you, and we didn't have it back then.
That's right.
So they
yeah.
can
So
go
now
back to the episodes and down and create these great snippets.
Yeah. So the platforms are making it easier for you to leverage them as well, which is great, because before you had to go and plug them into more tools and do it more, spend more time cutting up video and more time wasted, or more time expended. So now the platforms are getting really clever in how they do the workflow as well.
Yeah, and I love, like you said, we were looking at this frame that we built for this show, and it just looks killer.
It does.
It's lovely the way it sits out there. Although I do see I have the random humanist, the random humanist logo up there in the top right.
Oh, that's good. I like it.
It's good. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go back to. There we go. Get rid of that. That doesn't belong there. We already got the logo and the blown out logo and everything else.
Very cool.
So that was the one question about where do we go from here, especially with the number of shows, and I agree. I think you'll see more people start to charge.
Yeah.
Especially people, because we'll start to separate the men from the boys on professionalism, size of the show, the audience.
Definitely.
And I think, when you get to a pod match, there'll start to be something there where they have different levels of how you get into a show, et cetera.
Yep, absolutely. And so I think, because there's lots of podcasts, but it's how you execute your podcast as well. You can do it really in a raw form, which is still great, or you can do it in a much more professional form, and it's getting to become more like mainstream radio in a way, or what mainstream radio was. So there's more professionalism and there's more value in that as well.
I learned about StreamYard. I was interviewed by this guy, he's Ajay Masterclass Ajay.
I actually was on his podcast just the other day. He's great.
Get out of here.
Great. I was on his podcast the other day.
He's a big pod. He's a pod match guy.
He's a cool guy.
I got interviewed by him. He was my first, I think maybe one of my first interviews.
Wow.
And it was on this platform.
Yep.
And I thought it was just bananas. Oh, he was not one of my first, because I had done quite a few where, you apply and then they come back with an email and then they say, okay, let's have a chat. And then you have a chat, and then you come back and you got to submit questions, and then you got a profile and a bio. And I found I was spending about 3 hours to do one show.
Exactly.
And then here comes this guy. He sends me a link. He shows up, and it's literally, we get into the green room, and he's like, okay, great. We're going to go live in 2 minutes. You got any questions? And I was like,
cool.
We're starting. He's like, yeah, we're starting. And just, that was it. And away we went.
Yeah. He's really good.
And then he hangs up and he says, that's it. So I was impressed, because there was zero lifting.
Yeah. Zero friction.
Heavy lifting, zero friction. And he's able to he was doing 4 or 5 a day.
Wow.
Yeah. You look at his number of podcasts he's done. It's insane how many shows he's done.
Yeah.
So his strategy is just volume.
Yep. And it's live streamed, so it can be thrown up really quickly. And it's ready to be promoted. Yep. It's done.
Yeah. It's being promoted. So he's constantly just, spinning shows out into the internet. Nonstop. So he's got volume on steroids strategy.
Yeah, yep, he's great. Cool. I was on there just the other day.
Yeah, and so I'm sure he has the same style. Like, I'm sure it hasn't changed.
Very, very easygoing, very low friction, and very engaging. And he just wants to get as much information out of you, chat about podcasting, chat about what you do, and off we go.
And and I found he was also like a phenomenally good listener.
He was, and asked really good questions as well. Very clever.
He's very clever. Well, so he was like an NBC guy or whatever in India. He was like I don't know, maybe the local version of so he was in Delhi. So he was a high level media guy for years.
Interesting. Yeah, he asks really good questions.
And so you feel the gravitas of his experience
Yep.
when you're on the show, because he does. He's like, oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had
Yep.
he had hit me with quite a few of those.
Yep.
So how do
That's-
people find you, Darren? Where are you at
so
on?
you can find me on my website, and everything links from the website. So that's just Suspended Animation.
Yes.
So that's one word. That was my photography brand, and I just decided to make that into my podcasting brand as well. And
I think
and if
that
you like,
works.
yeah, and I think it's just fun, just a different name. So I call it Suspended Animation Podcasting. And if you like, I'll send you a little link that you can share with people just to jump on, and there's a bunch of different free resources that people can grab, and links to the free webinars and all that kind of thing. So,
Oh, that's super. Yeah, we'll get that on we'll also get that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll pop you into that.
Yeah, let's make sure we get that on LinkedIn as well. Just what a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about podcasting in this space, because I think it's, as you say, it's still emerging, it's still developing. It's the new way we do things from a media point of view, because it's so easy and accessible, and everybody can do it. There's no gatekeepers. You want to do a show, start your show.
This is the fun part. Yeah, I love this part. There's no gatekeepers. There's
No
nobody that can tell you can't, you're not allowed, or you can't do it. And you can do this on a very low budget. I mean, I think that's the other thing we should point out is, yes, I pay for some expensive platforms to help produce a show and try to get it to another level, but you can absolutely do podcasting on your iPhone.
Indeed. Yep. You can put your AirPods in even. There's everything taken care of. Use your inbuilt camera on your laptop or your computer, and you can do this really low cost. Look at you. You're walking around wireless with a microphone attached to your computer, and it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, amazing, right? Like, you think of how good, and you could be communicating and you creating content.
Yep. That's the key.
I think that's the other part, is that this is, it's, yes, it can be expensive and time consuming, et cetera, but it can also be very easy, which explains why there's a couple 100,000 podcasts started every year.
Everybody wants to be the person in their space, and the podcast is the best way to position yourself as the person or the leader in that space. That's the biggest power of it, and because of that, you get all the content. So it's a double whammy, and you win. How can you lose? There's so much stuff.
So well said. Yeah, that's so well said too. So well said. Leader, you become a leader in the space, and you can become an authority
in the space. So if people are searching for your services and someone else, and you've got a podcast and they don't, who's going to win the business? You're
going to win it 100%. Especially like a photographer, like we were saying, a photographer. I get to know you before I hire you for my event. Much better. And
then there's less friction in terms of that process. We already know you. Yep. Can you do the event? Yep. No worries. You don't even have to go for any interviews. You don't have to have any meetings. They already know who you are. So you're doing all the pre-work up front. You don't have to do the work later on.
Yeah. Let the client do the work, do the poking around, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just easy, less friction.
Darren, thanks so much for being a guest, taking time out. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure, Ken. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, it was really good. And I'll catch you on LinkedIn in a little bit, and let's share that the links to all the good stuff, and then and we'll chat again soon. I'll come back to you, and I'll see you. You've got a webinar coming up end of the month.
Yes, I've got a webinar coming up end of the month, on a free webinar on how to monetize your podcast. So I'm going to go through lots of different strategies just to keep you thinking about how you can start monetizing, possibly in a few different creative ways. You don't have to be doing the obvious.
Super.
So that's fun too.
I can't wait to do that. And then I think I'll kind of spin that around and promote it as well, because it just sounds like fun.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll get you to come on my show as well. I'll send you a link, and love you to come on my show.
Oh, that'd be great. And hang around. I'm going to play that. I'll give you that guitar music and my goofy voiceover one more time, and I'll see you on the other side.
Done.
Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies